Hey everybody. I wanted to do the book of Matthew. Now I've already previously done it in the intro video, but for people who wanted to see it outside of that, or who wanted a link to share just that part, this is what this video is for. So this is the book of Matthew. We're going to go line for line through it. And I hope that it makes a lot of sense. I have not done the other gospels yet, but I will. Let's start with the 12 signs. So I start with Aquarius, even though Aries is the beginning of the year, because Aquarius is the beginning of our year. The first sign is Aquarius, which is represented by the man. So whenever you hear son of man, man, baptism, water pitcher, fountain, stream, river, pond, lake, sea, ocean, water bodies, you're talking about Aquarius. Now Aquarius being an air sign, whereas Pisces is the mutable water sign, so it would make more sense to have the water in Pisces. However, because there's a man pouring out water at the water pitcher and there's water literally in the Aquarius sign, we talk about water in Aquarius. Now, stream, river, pond, lake, sea, ocean, that also applies for Pisces, which is the mutable water sign. Aries is the ram, and in Aries you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's the first day of Aries. It's a 12-hour day, it's a 12-hour night. It's also the Passover, or the passing over of the sun over the equator and back on its way to its height in the summer solstice. In Christianity, the passing over is changed and it's called the resurrection of God's son. In Judaism, the Passover is when the angel of death literally passes over the houses, and anyone that doesn't have the lamb or the ram, Aries being the ram, the Jews are the people of Aries. Anyone who doesn't have the ram's blood smeared on their door, the angel of death kills the firstborn son. So it's 3 Passovers in Aries. Taurus is the bull. When you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know that you need to put the plow on the bull so that you can plant the seed so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. I'm sorry, in Aries, ram, lamb, shepherd, or ram's horn are the key words you're looking for. In Taurus, it's bull, ox, calf, or cow, cow being the female bull. Gemini is the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. It's the story of Achilles. So whenever you hear twins or brothers, you're talking about Gemini. Cancer is the crab. It's the sideways moving creature. So just as the sun rises a degree on its axis starting on December 25th every single day, it stops on June 21st. Then for 3 days, it rises to the same degree, hence moving sideways like the crab. Then on June 25th, it lowers a degree, and then it continues to lower a degree. The crab in the ancient Egyptian time was known as the scarab. So whenever you're talking about crab or beetle, you're talking about Cancer. Leo is the king. He's the lion. He's the king of the jungle. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So when you're talking about the kingdom of heaven on earth, it's a metaphor for the sun being in Leo because that's its rightful home. Whenever you hear lion, lioness, or cub, that's Leo. Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. So you remember before when you were saying that you plant in Taurus, well, the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear virgin, woman, girl, woman signs, girls, females, that's Virgo, whereas the males is Aquarius. Wheat, because the lady holding the wheat stalk, grain, seed, barley, corn, grainy things, things that you harvest, that's always done in Virgo. Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance, it's the just one. The reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. So in Aries, March 21st, that's when the sun passes over. It's celebrated, okay? However, here, it's being judged to death, basically. It's being mourned. This is another Passover, technically. The Jews always celebrate the new year around the fall equinox. And being as it's the law, the judge, the justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, lawly things, judgment. 8 days after the Jewish New Year, you have something called Yom Kippur, which is the day of judgment. And that's in Libra. The judgment is in Libra because Libra is the justice, it's the judge. So whenever you hear law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, that's Libra. Whenever you hear wine, vineyard, wine press, grapes, you're talking about Libra because this is when you press the grapes into wine. Whenever you hear olive oil, olive or oil, for example, the Mount of Olives, or oil, you're talking about Libra. Incidentally, frankincense and myrrh are both olive plants as well. So when Jesus is being brought frankincense and myrrh, That has to do with Libra because that's an olive plant. Okay. Scorpio is the scorpion. He's the betrayer. When a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like two lips. It's why the mafia has the kiss of death. It's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss. So the sun is judged in Libra, right? It's betrayed in Scorpio. Finally, it's killed in Sagittarius with the man with the bow and the arrow. Because on December 21st, the last day of Sagittarius, the sun is at its lowest point. It cannot rise any lower. It was considered dead. The ancients would look over at the sun on December 21st, realize it didn't even cross the horizon. So they would say the sun was dead. Then they noticed that it remained at that lowest level for 3 days, just like the crab in Cancer, walking sideways for 3 days. So suddenly God's son was dead for 3 days. When on December 25th, or the birth of God's son, it rises another degree and starts to make its way back up to the top. So whenever you hear horse, bow and arrow, spear, or horseman, you're talking about Sagittarius. And then finally, we have Capricorn, which is the goat because he likes to climb the mountain. Okay. Now, anytime you look at the zodiac wheel and you see Capricorn at the bottom, Cancer on top, how the zodiac wheel is supposed to look, imagine the sun climbing a degree a day starting December 25th at the very bottom of Capricorn. It climbs a degree a day alongside the wheel all the way back up to June 21st in Cancer. Now, the goat climbs the mountain better than anyone, and just like the sun climbs the mountain starting in Capricorn. So now that we have that done, I hope you guys aren't sick of hearing that, but I have to start every video with that in order to get the background, because there could be new people listening for the first time. And if I just went into it, most of you already understand this. But if I just went into it, they'd be lost. So the book of Matthew 3:2. And what I've done here is I've put the zodiac on the left and I've highlighted it with a red section so you know where to look. So Matthew 3:2, repent of your sins and turn to God, for the kingdom of heaven is near. Each gospel begins at one of the 4 major points of the zodiac and ends at one of them as well too. The 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes, when connected, form a cross. This is known as the cross of God's sun. The kingdom of heaven is Leo, whose ruling planet is the sun. This is the only sign that the sun rules over. The closest of the 4 points to Leo is June 21st in Cancer. This is where the gospel starts. This is the firmament between Cancer and Leo. So I've mentioned this before. The dividing lines between the zodiac signs are known as handover dates. They're known as cusps. What it is it's a 3-day period where one sign hands the energy over to another. Okay? It's a 3-day period. Now, there's a saying in the Bible that says the firmament shows God's handiwork. The firmaments are the dividing lines between signs. They are not a dome over a flat earth. That's a mistranslation. That's a misunderstanding. And it's a very vital misunderstanding. Now, the next passage, Matthew 3:4, John's clothes were woven from coarse camel hair, and he wore a leather belt around his waist. For food, he ate locusts and wild honey. So what really stands out to me here is the camel hair clothing and the eating locusts. So let's see if we can break that down a little bit. If we take the most famous drawing of a man, Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and superimpose it onto the zodiac, we can make sense of this. Cancer being the head is why he eats the wild honey. In Cancer, there's a star cluster called the beehive cluster. Bees produce honey. Makes sense, right? Leviticus 11, what's clean and unclean to eat? All flying insects that walk on all fours are to be regarded as unclean by you. There are, however, some flying insects that walk on all fours that you may eat, those that have jointed legs for hopping on the ground. Of these, you may eat any kind of locust, katydid, cricket, or grasshopper. So there's the locust. And when you hear people talking about the World Economic Forum and all these people trying to get you to eat bugs, know that it's biblical. It goes back to this, okay? Now, we were just in Leo. Now we're in Cancer. We're following the pattern of the zodiac. Next is Gemini. A little lower down on the body is the clothes made out of camel hair, or Camelopardalis, which is a constellation in Gemini. Camelopardalis means camel, camelos, or pardalis, which means leopard. The giraffe used to be called the camel leopard, and it makes sense if you think about it. So that's Camelopardalis. So right now you have the head and the upper body so far. So now we went from Leo to Cancer to Gemini. Now we're gonna go to Taurus. We're gonna follow the zodiac. Moving a little lower down on the body, and you'll get his midsection, which is where you would wear a belt. Taurus represents the bull and the female is the cow, which is where you would get the leather. That's where you get the leather, from the cow. Regarding the belt, Orion's belt sits between Taurus and Gemini. So next would be the baptism. Now, how are we going to go from the beginning of Leo to a water sign to signify the baptism? You would go across the zodiac. Cross signs, as they are known, are signs opposite location. For example, Aries and Libra are cross signs. You're going to see these patterns. I make mention of these patterns in all the other videos. Not only are they talking about zodiac signs, not only are they referencing them, but more often than not, they're talking about their neighboring signs, or they're talking about their opposing signs. That's how you know it was done, because it's a very specific pattern. Aries and Libra are cross signs. So Aries being the lamb or the ram, and Libra being, let's say, the grapes. You're going to see how that plays out. So signs three most important signs are its two neighboring signs. So we're in Taurus right now. So the neighboring signs would be Aries and Gemini. And its cross sign, Taurus is across, is Scorpio. Here we see how it makes a leap from one firmament to the other. Now, if you're in a firmament, you can talk about either side. So for example, Capricorn Aquarius firmament, because it's in the middle and it's a handover date, it has energy from both sides. So I can talk about a goat in Capricorn. I could talk about the sun rising or the sun coming back to life or the birth of Christ. Aquarius, I could talk about water. I could talk about either of these things. When you're physically in one sign, you can only talk about that one sign, okay? The man with the water pitcher in Aquarius is personified as John the Baptist with the water, okay? It's important. So now we know that John the Baptist is Aquarius. Makes sense. The man with the water pitcher, baptism, all that stuff. And we also know, that Judas is Scorpio. Okay, so each one of the disciples represents one of these signs, and they have stories that let you believe that. Okay, it's important to note too that John the Baptist and Jesus are always exactly 6 months apart. When you think about the fact that Jesus is born on December 25th and rises a degree a day, then that must mean that John the Baptist is born on June 24th and decrease a degree a day. This is why in John 3:30, John says, "He must increase, but I must decrease." It's also why St. John's is exactly 6 months. St. John's Day is exactly 6 months to the day of the birthday of Jesus. Look up any Catholic calendar. Holy St. John's Day is June 24th. Okay, so the next story is about the temptation of Jesus. So we're going back to the Cancer Leo firmament of July 24th. This one is simple. He's tempted for 40 days. You'll see the 40-day motif throughout the Bible, but he's tempted for 40 days. So what do? Well, just count 40 days. He's tempted for 40 days. That takes you to September 2nd, right? That is right in the middle of Virgo. That's the woman with the wheat stalk. Wheat is bread. Remember, what is the very next passage? Matthew 4:3, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become loaves of bread. Here we see mention of the bread, which tells you that the sun is in Virgo now. Okay, the next passage, Matthew 5:17 and 22. I did not come to abolish the law, and if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. Well, we know that law and judgment takes place in Libra. So you go from Virgo to Libra. Those are connecting signs. Okay. Matthew 7:15-16, beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep. And can you pick grapes from the thorn bushes? So this is what I was mentioning to you before. You have Aries and Libra. Those are opposing signs. Well, the sheep is Aries. Okay. The sheep is Aries, the ram, and the grapes are Libra. Okay. So that's how you make a pattern there. Moving along, Matthew 13, later that same day, Jesus left the house and sat beside the lake. The story now moves from Libra to the barrier between Aquarius and Pisces, as he is right beside the lake. Okay, since he's beside the lake, that would mean he's between the two water signs. For if he was in a body of water, he would literally be in one sign. But because in the zodiac, he's between the signs, hence between the lake, beside the lake. The story now moves from Libra to the barrier of Aquarius and Pisces, as he's right beside the lake, or the two water signs. Its cross sign is the Leo Virgo firmament. As it's across from Virgo, the wheat stalk, the grains, is it ironic that Jesus' next parables are the wheat and the weeds, the mustard seed, and the yeast? Now, moving right along, next is the fishing net parable. So now we go back across from Leo Virgo to Aquarius Pisces, touching Pisces, Pisces being the fish. So now we can have the fishing net parable. Gemini is the sign of two men. technically twins. However, there's just a short mention of brothers in the next passage. He's just the carpenter's son, and we know Mary, his mother, and his brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas. This ends at the Gemini, Cancer firmament. How do we know this? Well, we're in Gemini right now because they're talking about the men. They're talking about the two men, the twins. They're talking about the brothers, right? Now, how do we know it's the Gemini, Cancer firmament? Well, the Gemini, Cancer firmament, okay, if you follow that across and you make a cross sign, it takes you to the Sagittarius, Capricorn border or their handover date. You know what that date is? That's December 21st. And as I mentioned before, that's the day of death. That's the day the sun dies. So it's the day of death, okay? So how do we know this? Because what's the very next passage? It's the death of John the Baptist, okay? I hope you guys are starting to see how this works. As I've mentioned previously, death comes at the end of Sagittarius. The firmament of Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Gemini, Cancer are opposing signs. Let me just pause for people who might not be getting this to give you an example that's not in the Bible of how this works. So let's take the sentence, which sounds like it could be in the Bible, but isn't. If I say to you, the rulers were divided between war and love, it split the land in half. You could read that as a literal translation. Or the ruling planet of Aries is Mars, who's the god of war. The ruling planet of Libra is Venus, who's the goddess of love. There's your war and love. If you connect it, it literally splits the land or the zodiac in half, literally. They are opposing signs. Okay, so that's how this basically works. Matthew 14, 17, and 32. But we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The bread and the fish are opposing signs in the zodiac. Okay, Virgo and Pisces are opposing signs. Also, Pisces is the 2 fish, which is why Jesus literally feeds the masses with 2 fish. Regarding the 5 loaves of bread, why 5? Well, the year starts in Aries. If you count 5 signs from Aries, you get to Virgo. So that's why it's 5 loaves of bread. This is the cross of God's sun. We were just in Virgo, and now next is Libra, which is law and wine and olives, remember? What stories do we get now? The story of the temple tax, the unforgiving debtor, divorce and marriage. So there's all the law. And the parable of the vineyard worker. There's the wine. As you can see at this point, how things are encoded and also put there in plain sight. Okay. Next is Scorpio, the betrayer. This is where Judas betrays Jesus with a kiss. That's Scorpio. And then what's next? Sagittarius. Well, what happens in Sagittarius? Remember, Sagittarius is December 21st. So in Sagittarius, you could talk about horses, horsemen, bow and arrow, spear. You can talk about death, okay? Here's where Jesus is crucified on the cross. I've just showed you. But we know when the sun dies on December 21st, it remains dead for 3 days and then rises on December 25th, the resurrection. So I just wanted you guys to be able to have this to share, because this is one of the most complete line for line decodings that I have done. And I hope that you guys enjoy it. Now, there's just one more thing that I want to show you. Let's just see here a second. Hold on. 1 second. Here we go. So let's talk about this for a minute. I have a book series out that many of you might know about, okay? The topics discussed in my book series are gematria, etymology, numerology, astronomy, astrology, astrotheology, out-of-body experiences, the Akashic records, symbology, remote viewing, religious secrets, capstones of the pyramids, mystery school channelers, near-death experiences, DMT monitoring, lucid dreaming, acoustic levitation, physics and quantum physics, psychotherapy, psychology, spiritual guides and shared dreaming, crystal technology, conspiracies that not many people know about, corruption and secret societies. I've written this into a Dan Brown type series of thrillers in order to explain this to people who have no clue about this, in order to soft ease them into it. This is my book series. 6 are out so far. I've got 8 written. My last 2 are with the publisher, and I'm currently putting together books 9. The series is called Into the Rabbit Hole series. And I would strongly advise you guys, if you like my work, to pick these up, because you will be hella entertained. Imagine a Dan Brown novel, but the characters are young, wise asses, but they get into very deep esoteric stuff. I also have a children's book with my astrologer Priscilla. A is for Aries. It's for 6 to 11-year-olds. It's an intro to astrotheology. Okay. And that's basically it. Now you guys can reach out to me on social media, Twitter at Real Mr. Dank, spell out Mr., Facebook and Instagram at Micah Dank. Okay. Now you guys are probably wondering what's the point of encoding it like this? Well, my point once again is not that those ancient people told literal stories and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. And that's basically where it is. That's basically what it is. It literally is that. Okay. So I wanted to thank you guys for listening. And I hope that you really enjoy this. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Okay.